Hello everyone, welcome to Mr. Stanier's Chess Academy. This is the expert course lesson 4, and what we're going to do today is we're going to look a bit more deeply into the Queen's Gambit opening to see how we should develop our pieces in that opening. We're then for the middle game going to look at 3 puzzles which have the themes of forks, skewers and pins. And then in the end game we're going to look at a strategy to win the end game called Fox in the Chicken Coop. Very exciting. So, openings, the Queen's Gambit. Now, as we looked at last time, the Queen's Gambit is called the Queen's Gambit because we start with the Queen's pawn moving to d4. And the usual reply by black is to move their Queen's pawn out as well. And then the second move in the Queen's Gambit, just think quickly, can you remember it? It's moving the pawn up to c4 here. Now we looked last time at 2 things that the black pieces can do. They can either accept the Queen's Gambit and take this, leaving their centre quite open to the white pieces, or they can decline it and say no thank you, I'm not going to accept the Queen's Gambit. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at how you should develop your pieces in the Queen's Gambit, and we're going to look at the declined variation, but similar patterns can also be applied if it's accepted as well. So black, they've got various options here, but they might just move their knight out here. And as we talked about last time, the move for white in this situation is almost always to move the knight up here to c3. So this idea of putting the knight behind this pawn here. Black, they might develop maybe by moving that pawn here to further defend this. Now, at this stage, I'd recommend that you resolve this tension here. So there's tension here, isn't it? Because black still hasn't accepted this gambit. It's an unsolved problem. So I would at this stage take the pawn there, and black should take with their pawn. Okay, so now you're in this position. You would like to now move the rest of your minor pieces out, so maybe get this bishop out here, and to do that you want to move this pawn. Now you're not going to move your pawn to e4, because if you move your pawn to e4 it is disastrous, because you take that, you take that, you take that, and it's all a bit of a mess. So we're not going to do that at all. We would like to move our pawn to e3 to support this pawn here, but there's a problem with this, and the problem is it's blocking this bishop. So one of the things you want to think about once you're in this position here is you want to think about moving this bishop out here. Another problem that there is at this position is if black moves their bishop to f5 here, because they're taking this diagonal here, which is quite a gain of space for black. So you don't really want that to happen either. So from this position you need to think about those issues as you progress. So I would recommend that your next move is to move the queen to c2. Now usually I'd recommend not moving your queen until you've moved your minor pieces out, but this stops this problem, because now white can't move their bishop to f5. Black might progress by maybe moving their knight to c6, which is now putting pressure on this Remember, you might be tempted to do this to defend it, but you don't want to do that because you want the bishop to move out, so you're going to defend it with your knight here. Okay? And then black might be quite aggressive and move their bishop here, which is pinning this knight here. Don't worry about that at the moment. That's not a huge issue, because you want to develop your pieces. Now, before we can move this pawn, we want to move this bishop out, and we have a choice. We can either move it to f4 here, where we are kind of taking control of this diagonal, or we can be aggressive like black's been. What's that doing there? We can be more aggressive like black's been and put our bishop here, pinning this knight. So I quite like the look of that. Then white, they might move their bishop here to be quite defensive, or they might castle. So I don't know, I need to stop my computer taking pieces randomly like that, don't I? They might castle, and now at this stage you move this pawn out. They might do that, and then you can move your bishop, this time protecting this knight, and then castle. You can castle on either side here, castle relieving that pin. Okay, so that is the basic structure of moves of this Queen's Gambit opening, and as you can see, it leaves you lots of options. You've developed lots of your pieces. You're putting lots of pressure on the centre. What you've also got is this really nice diagonal with the Queen attacking this weak pawn here. So one of the things you can do is put your bishop here, and then you've got a double attack on this pawn, which pays dividends later on in the game. So it's a really strong opening, and when you're playing against sort of intermediate players, they're not used to these patterns. They haven't seen them before, so it's a good way of throwing them. So let's just go through those patterns again, because we did just take in quite a lot of information. So Queen's Gambit. And then we're going to, just for illustration, show the Queen's Gambit declined. Oh, I need to stop my computer doing that. The Queen's Gambit declined, so we'll have that today. And then the knight. And then if at this stage it's not resolved, resolve the Gambit. And then we've still got this pawn here that's being threatened. So at this stage we'll take our knight. I think it's actually a problem with my mouse. It doesn't click in the right place. So knight developed, and now at this stage we were thinking about this bishop coming here. So we want to move our queen here to stop that. And now we want to move the black bishop out. We'll put it here today. And now we can move this pawn. And now we can move this bishop. And because the knight's not under threat, we're going to move it here, so that when black castles, we're putting pressure onto that square here. And at this stage you'd castle. Okay, so one more time, please, Mr. Stanier. Well, of course. So, Queen's Gambit, and then we're going to decline it. So we're moving on knight first of all. Oh. Then we're going to resolve it. There. And then to stop this bishop coming down, we are going to do this. So it's attacking the pawn here. So then we're going to move this out to defend it. Now before we want to move this pawn, we want to move this bishop here. And now we can move this out. Okay, so there are various variations for this, and you need to look out for troubles as you go. So if we are doing this, and then does that. Now at this stage, so I've been telling you to do this because that is the basic pattern. You might at this stage think, well, hang on a second, this bishop's going to come down here. I want to stop that first. So you might want to do the queen move there first of all, and then progress with that position. Okay, so you need to be quite well attuned to the moves that black are playing, but the basic patterns hopefully are there. So the basic pattern of those two pawns there, the knight behind it, getting the bishop out before you're moving that pawn and putting that bishop here. This knight can sit very happily either on f3, but it also sits quite nicely on e2 because it links the two knights up, which is quite a powerful motif, which I haven't talked a lot about, but we'll talk about in the future. Okay, so we're looking at a basic pattern like that, or like that. All right, so try it out. Have a few games. Either go online and have a few games and try it out, or play somebody at home and try it out and see how far you get with it. But it is a very powerful opening. I can recommend a chess website called Chessable. So Chessable, A-B-L-E, where there is some paid content, but there are some free books, and what it does is it's a package which helps you learn these openings, these routines off by heart. So do have a look at it because it does help embed some of these openings. So there's the opening game. There's how the Queen's Gambit should really develop. Now I want to have a look at the middle game. So as we talked before, puzzles are so important in the middle game. For you to try and get your head thinking in a chess way and training your brain to think chess as much as possible. So, try and do as many of these puzzles as possible. But I thought we'd do 3 together that are all on a kind of theme that we looked at last time about forks, pins, and skewers. So I think if we look at this puzzle first of all, now this puzzle is towards the finishing part of the middle game, and you can see in this position. So we're white. We're going to play white, and when you look at these chess puzzles, the first thing to do is just to analyse the position. So let's have a look at how the two sides are lining up against each other. So black's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus another 3, so that's 9 plus 9 plus 18 points, and white have got the same here, so they've got 18 points as well. So there's not much, they're materially equal. They both got the same firepower. There are no pawns that have got a clear run to the end, what we call pass pawns. They're all blocked by another pawn. So that's quite equal. There's no clear advantage there. Black's got a slight advantage with this pawn being slightly further forward, but it's only supported by this knight. And for white, I'm a little bit concerned about the queen coming down here to c1 and getting check here. Will be blocked by the knight, but then the queen can take this pawn, which is a little bit of an issue. So that's the situation. It's quite evenly balanced. These puzzles usually have a really good move, so either a checkmate you're looking for, or a move which will really change the balance of the game. And so what we do first of all is we need to think about, well, what are the candidate moves? So just as you have candidates in an election, you think, well, which are moves which I might want to do in this situation. So let's have a look for some candidate moves. So we've got, let's have a look. So maybe to stop the queen coming down here to c1, I could move my knight to e2, and that would stop that because it would take on that square there. But then the queen could still come down to c2. I'd have to move my knight out of the way and then take b2, so I'd lose a pawn. So that might not be a good move. Maybe, but well, maybe not. Maybe I could move a3 and then move that pawn up to b4 to attack the queen. But that's a long way off and there's not much advantage. Could maybe move the pawn to h3 here, so that would stop this knight coming down here and leave a little escape hatch for my king if the queen came down here, stop the back row mate. But that doesn't bring much advantage to me. Can you see the move that I can do? Remember that this is around the theme of a fork, so this might involve my knight somehow. So if I took this pawn with my knight, the knight would just take me here and I'd just lose that. So that's Can you see the solution? Well, I'm about to tell you the solution. So if you want to think about it yourself, then press pause on the video and see if you can work it out yourself. But this is the solution. So what you need to do is you need to take the knight here. So of all my candidate moves, this is a candidate move. I've got moving my knight as a candidate move, moving this pawn as a candidate move, moving this pawn as a candidate move. But this one here is probably the move that I should do. Madness, Mr. Stanier, madness, you're saying, because if I take the knight here, the king will just take the queen. And I've lost the queen, and all I've got back for it is a knight. But look at the next move. Can you see my next move? I hope you're screaming at the computer screen now. The next move, of course, is here, because we go check, and then we're threatening the queen. So say the king moves out of the way here, we take the queen, this knight takes this. Now, let's have a look at the situation. Remember, it was all square before we did this little exchange, but now black has just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns, so already my pawn up. But also, look, I've got this pawn here, has got a clear run to the end. This pawn here, if we can get the king out of the way, has got a clear run to the end here. So we've got a clear strategic advantage. Okay, so there's a nice little puzzle. If you want to think about that again, then just rewind the video and have a look at that puzzle again, because it's really good if you can see the thinking behind it. Let's have a look at another one. This one's a bit easier actually, so let's just kind of weigh up the situation again. So we've got white has got, so we've got 10 points, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18 points. Black's got, oh look, black's got a queen, 9, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So black seems to have, in material terms, quite an advantage. They've got their queen. I've lost my queen somewhere in my game. This is terrible. This isn't looking good at all. So it's my move to go as white. And all I want you to do now is I want you to think now, just on your own, about maybe the candidate moves that you can see, and maybe think about which one of those candidates you can move. So maybe pause the video and I'll just give you sort of 15-20 minutes to think if you want to do this live. So there are several candidate moves, aren't there? I hope maybe you thought about moving the pawn there to attack the bishop. Might be a potential move, although again doesn't bring you very much. Maybe moving your rook maybe across here to maybe attack the bishop, and the knight there, a bit of a skewer there. Maybe you might have thought about moving your rook over here to take control of this file here, and they're all good candidate moves. Another move might be to move the knight there to attack. Oh no, because you'll be taken by the bishop to not much gate. But hang on a second. Maybe, and here I'm going to tell you the answer. So if you don't want to know about it yet, press pause. But here's the answer. Maybe if we move our knight here to f6, then we have a fork, don't we? So it's going to be check, and then the queen is threatened. Okay, so if that happens, can you see what black's going to do? And this is where we talk about being able to plan ahead in chess. So the pawn will come and take the knight here. Okay, so you've just given away your knight, Mr. Stanier. Are you mad? But no, look, if you think the knight's no longer here, what would your next move be? Well, let's have a look how it plays out. So we go check, and the next move for white is quite obvious. There we go, and we've captured the enemy's queen, and we've now got equal opportunity of winning the game. We've managed to turn it around. Okay, so another really good example of how if you look for these forks, then they're really, really powerful. Let's have a look at a final puzzle together. So this one is, during the opening, really, or during the opening, this is a position which could typically arise, especially if you enjoy playing the Italian opening, which I hope you recognise here. So it's white to move, and again we're thinking about forks. We've got a bit of a pin going on here as well. So what should white's next move be? So thinking about the candidate moves. So we could just carry on with our piece development here, couldn't we? We could move the knight out there, or we could move this pawn up so that we could move the bishop out in the future. We can't castle because of this pesky bishop here, so we might want to start moving our pawns up here to drive that bishop away somehow. We might want to start developing our queen and getting that in the action, or we might want to move this pawn here to maybe drive this bishop away. All good sound moves, but in this position there's a little trick that you can do, which again involves a sacrifice on the same theme as the other puzzles we've looked at. Can you see the sacrificial move that you should make? Well, I'm going to tell you the answer now. So please pause and think about it yourself if you want to. So the move is the bishop taking this pawn here and getting check. How does that work out? Well, let's have a look. Check. Now, can you see the next move for white? You need to. This is going to jar a little bit, but can you see it? So you need to take this pawn here. Now you might hesitate at this move because there's a opens up this pin, doesn't it? You think, oh, I can't move this knight because it's pinned, but it's okay because check, and look where the other end of this fork is. It's on the bishop. So if the king, say, moves back to its natural position here, then you can either take this bishop with your knight, or you could take it with your queen. Or you could take it with your queen if you wanted to. But just for the sake of the theme, we'll take it with our knight. Okay, so another example of how you can get out of a pin by using a fork. There we go, double themed. So it's really, I really like those chess puzzles. And again, look online for your own, or there's lots of books of chess puzzles that you can get on Amazon. Get them and try and do as many puzzles as you can a day. I'm currently during lockdown trying to do at least 25 to 30 puzzles a day. So keep your chess brain fit and healthy. Okay, the final thing I want to look at today then is the end game, and an idea called fox in the chicken coop. So I'm just going to set up a position here. So maybe like this. So we maybe put that pawn there. So we have here an endgame situation where white has a slight advantage, and you know should win this position, but with good play. And the good play that we need is this idea of fox in a chicken coop. Now, this is a really key idea because it's how the pawns are laid out here. So if you're thinking about, you know, you're in the middle game and you think, well, should I exchange all my pieces off to rattle it down to just our pawns? Well, if your pawns are in this position for white, then you should, because it creates this idea of a fox in a chicken coop. And what this idea of fox in a chicken coop is that you distract the I don't know, the chicken farmer, whoever's looking after the chickens, you distract him with this pawn whilst you, the fox, go and gobble up the chickens. Okay, so you're like a fox in a chicken coop. So let's see how this works out. So black will instinctively want to protect these two pawns, but it can't because it's going to have the problem with this pawn here coming down and becoming a queen. So the king has to come over. So now white can work its way up to attack these black pawns. The king still has to deal with this problem. And then, manages to deal with the problem, but too late. Nom, eating up all of the chickens in the coop, meaning that these pawns are more than happy to go and become a queen. Okay, so it's quite a simple idea, but one that if you don't know about, you might think, well, actually, I'm going to be stumped here. So even just with, you know, if you've got a situation like this, then you might think, oh, we're equal because there's 1, 2, 3 pawns each, and we're equal going into the endgame. But you're not equal at all. White's got a huge advantage because of this idea of the fox in the chicken coop. You've got the distraction over here, which the king is going to have to go and deal with. And in the time that it takes him to do that, you can come down and take the pawns. Nom. And even if it starts nomming, that's fine. You've now got an advantage. Okay, so really key idea. If you're going into the end game and you have got a pawn free on one side of the board when your opponent doesn't, then you've got an advantage and you should seize it. Okay, so I hope that helps today. We've had a look at more developments for the Queen's Gambit. Go back and look at them, get a chessboard out, practice your openings to make sure that you learn them off by heart. In the middle game, we've had a look at some puzzles looking at that theme of a fork, which I hope was really useful to help you see how you can get an advantage with this idea of a fork. And then we've had a look at the concept of a fox in the chicken coop. So keep practicing, keep playing, and I'll welcome any feedback you can give me about these videos. Okay, I'll see you next time.